The role of the architect shouldn't just be, I've done this for 20 years, that's good enough. You know, I know how to build an apartment building, I know how to build a school, I know how to build a stadium, I've done it before, I know exactly the tools to use there. No, the role of the architect, if we want to get back into a position where we're respected, because right now we're not, it's just, we're going to do drawings, you know, oh, they're great, but you don't know how to build it, so you're kind of useless, we'll just go to a contractor and he'll put it together. We really need to be rigorous about our task of creating place. We talk all the time about space, but we do not talk about how we are creating places for people. So environmental psychology is about understanding the messiness of the places that we create. And it evolved at a time in the 70s when people were designing huge airports, huge hospitals, huge schools, and people wanted to know why, you know, people's lives didn't seem to be getting better. We had all this urban renewal, building new apartment buildings, putting people in new places to live, but nobody ever considered, well, you know, you design an apartment building, but if you don't have a community center or you don't have shops on the first floor, maybe this isn't the best place to be in. Or maybe you just ripped away what made that community work, which was the laundromat or the delicatessen or the butcher shop, whatever it was that brought people together. I worked in the World Trade Center, and I can tell you that is one of the worst buildings I've ever worked in my life. I know it's not here, and it's terrible what happened to it, but it was terrible because you took the subway in to Cortlandt Street, you walked upstairs to get out, to come into a grand plaza, to walk through turnstiles, to go up another subway, except vertical, to arrive on the 44th floor, to go up yet again on another subway. So you were constantly in transportation and movement. And I remember going to a friend of mine who worked at KFP, Katz Cohn Pedersen and Fox, an architectural firm here in New York City, that does work throughout the world, and he was enamored with the fact that they had designed a building with like 12 different elevator shafts and so forth to just get to the top of this huge building they were building in China. And I looked at him and I said, do you have any idea what you're doing? Have you ever worked in a building like this? And he said, no. I said, why don't you go to the World Trade Center and realize how dehumanizing and alienating a place that is? Because you really feel, because not only just getting there was awful, in the sense that you didn't know who you were by the time you got up there, but when you got to the floor plate and were put in a cubicle, it was like exactly like that Dilbert cartoon where you see Dilbert in the cubicle and they pan out and you can't even tell the difference between one cubicle or the other. And this is the environments that we're creating. We're not creating places that address the individual. I think that architects need to take a role of greater responsibility in what they do. And the reason we need to take a greater role in what we do is that we need to come to the table to developers, to superintendents, to hospital administrators, and say, this is what we understand, because we not only have done the research, but we have gone back and looked at projects that we have done, and we understand what works and what doesn't work. And it's not about, you know, getting a better percentage out of you, though we will, you know, this still is a business and we still have to, you know, keep our business going. But more importantly, we have to take accountability for the kind of places that we're designing. We don't do any research, any true research. We don't want to understand how people live, which is why we design these condominiums that will not work in this city, because it's all curtain wall, and it's not even using curtain wall, it's using storefront. So are we responsible? We're responsible because we allow developers to tell us, I don't want to spend the money on you doing the right thing. I want this to come cheap because this condominium, I can walk away from this. Meanwhile, the same guy building this condominium, he'll do work, he'll be on a board of, let's say, an arts theater or a ballet company or something like that. They'll get money from funders. He's got no problem throwing away somebody else's money. And the reason why architects have to take responsibility is because, you know, that the same way we approach the design of an apartment building or a school, we should use that same design approach to do a theater. We should be rigorous, we should understand all the parameters, and you know, it should just be common practice. This is what sustainability is to me. It's basically saying, I understand how people live. You know, people can't be shoved into these boxes and be expected to be happy. We have to basically say, we're not going to build on brownfields for God's sakes. The AIA is going to the government, they had this wonderful thing a few years ago, AIA, get us mail. Yep, and we even lobbied to build on brownfields. Isn't this great? And people are going, yeah, this is wonderful because now we can put this into LEED. So now and I did talk to USGBC about this too, so we're building on brownfields. But who's accountable for this? The developer now has to clean it out. Meanwhile, the guys who were there, whether it was an oil manufacturer, some kind of manufacturer, some detergents, they get to walk away. They're not penalized for polluting the soil. But it's okay to build a school there. And because it's the first school that's been built there in 20, 30 years, look at Wade County in Florida. They built these new schools, right? They're prototype schools. Well, some of them are built on really bad soil, whether it's sinking or whether it's polluted. And people are like, it's okay. We got a new school, but we're going to have to monitor the air every now and then. But that's okay. We can live with that. But I can't live with that. And the reason I can't live with that is because that's not sustainable. Now I'm paying somebody to come in to monitor my school to make sure that the air is good. So one day, I make sure I got a fan going, so I blow all the bad air away. I do my monitoring. Hey, so look, the air is good. It's absolutely obscene to me that we endorse that kind of activity. Get it through our heads that architecture schools are also being completely irresponsible because they're making people think that they come out of architecture school and everybody's going to be a designer is not right, and it's not fair because not everybody wants to be a designer, number one. Number two, it's okay not to be a great designer. There's so many things to do in this profession. You have to know how to write because the Lord knows you're writing memos, you're writing minutes, you're writing schedules, you're corresponding on email to clients and so forth. So you need to know how to write. We're not teaching people how to write. We're not teaching people how to detail. We're not teaching people how to think. I have students who take my class who want to take my class because I tell them you can agree to disagree with me. I thought that's what Design Studio was also about. But God forbid you don't do what your design professor says because once again, they know all. Well, they know all, but why aren't they designing any new buildings? But that's another story. The bottom line is that we're irresponsible because the people, the American Institute of Architects, the NCARB, and how we colonize our students and people in the profession to think that I just have to yes people and that I can too rise if I want to be this whatever a real designer is. We have to understand that if by creating a society that doesn't ask questions, we're basically making ourselves we as a profession have to encourage young architects to understand that the technology they're using is merely a tool. They have to understand how to build the building that they're creating, but also understand that this place is going to affect somebody. So what can we do? What can we do to make it a place that in a sense, that I want to be a part of, that I want to attach to in a sense? I want to say it's because we believe the normative theories. We believe in that there's this one architect who's this great designer and everybody wants to be a great designer. There are faculty at City College that were bitter about the profession because they had this grandiose dreams about that. They went to a certain Ivy League school and they were going to be an architect. It doesn't happen. We have to start educating the profession that everybody is valued in it, not just designers, but people who do construction administration, people who do production, people who do, the AV, the lighting, all this stuff is valuable. And if people like the places they're in, then we've done something good. And you know what that good thing could be? It's so minimal. Even just replacing the windows on a building can make all the difference in the world. And that's what the kind of stuff we need to start taking more pride in, is that the smallest thing can make a difference. It doesn't always have to be, like a Freedom Tower or I don't know, the addition to the Guggenheim or something. I think we have to get back to basics and not only recognize that, building, that's what we went to architecture school to do, is to make places, but we also have to think about that everybody is valuable and not just disregard somebody because they're not a designer. And I think that's what we have to do. On the wall that you graduated with an architectural degree and hang it on the wall for one reason, Because when you're feeling down, you look at that degree and you remember all the struggles that you went through to get there and graduate. And that will allow you to move forward. Because if you get through those struggles, and if you remember them, that'll help propel you. And that's how a space can help shape you, just by the things that are in there. You may put it up, but they come back to you and reinforce your thinking.